A game called Ether World was released 10 years ago as a female-targeted dating simulator. However, it gained popularity among male players. The game allowed players to play with multiple options of primary characters, in which some characters were easy and efficient, while others were tough and inefficient. Among them was a trash character who was well known for his difficulty level and terrible features. However, there was only one pervert who played with this character, whose name is Beck Uziel for the past 10 years. And the pervert is none other than our protagonist, who is watching for fresh posts in the forum since they have gone wild because of a recent update in the game. Everyone in the community seems to be upset about the update. As of the latest update, a new final monster, the Black Demon Dragon, has been introduced, and no one has been able to defeat it. Player characters are being deleted after being killed by it. Our protagonist feels it's a strange update because these games are supposed to end when couples get together and there should be no final boss in a dating sim. Then someone adds that the new Dark Demon Dragon has 99% magic resistance. His attacks have no cooldown, and he continues to pound them with magic attacks. As a result, they determine that the game contains bugs since the Black Demon Dragon is a broken character. The person who posted this is a well-known ranker, which sparks the protagonist's interest in the game's final boss. He believes it makes no sense for a monster to have magic-nullifying abilities in the magical realm. He thinks it's a bug, but he doesn't understand why people's characters are being deleted after being murdered by the Dark Demon Dragon, which is the 13th moon of the Black Knight. The protagonist believes that according to the plot, in the Ether World, there is a cult-like organization known as Dark Demonic People whose purpose is to assist an otherworld called Persona Gate in taking over the Ether World. So the dragon must have arrived here because the demonic humans successfully achieved their purpose. The Persona Gate has already taken over 90% of the continent. Until then, he was solely concerned with the PvP rather than the story itself. But now the entire story is twisted up. But now that he can't avoid the story, he decides he might as well fight the dragon now. Then he accepts the task of confronting the Dark Demon Dragon, thinking it's time for him to show off the skills he's honed over the past decade. The protagonist then controls the Beck Uziel figure, who stands in front of the dragon. Beck Uziel is the only character in the game that cannot use magic, even though everyone in the game can use magic, which makes him the worst character to choose as the main character. As the dragon charges to attack at him, the protagonist explains that he has an exception for one magic. So he can only use one magic, blink magic, and travel at light speed for a second to avoid the dragon's attack. The blink spell allows him to go randomly between 3 and 10 meters very quickly, but the user has no control over the direction he travels. Furthermore, if the user cannot judge the distance well, the user is going to die due to the speed and collision. There is also a cool time, and the mana usage is outrageous. In addition, there is a penalty that prevents the user from moving for 2 seconds after using the skill. So, while everyone can acquire the talent, most people do not use it. However, Beck has perfected the usage of blink. So he can choose the direction and distance he wants to travel while avoiding the penalty that prevents him from moving for 2 seconds after utilizing it. As for mana usage, the skill does not consume any mana at all because he does not have any to begin with. The protagonist reveals that blink is nothing more than an agile ability, but after becoming obsessed with Beck's character, he has only used the blink skill for the previous 10 years and has not used magic from the beginning, and slays the dragon because the monster is just resistant to magic, but not physical attacks. The message indicates that he has defeated the last boss, the 13th moon of the Black Knight Dark Demon Dragon. Even the protagonist was shocked that he was able to defeat the dragon despite having the game's worst character. Then he goes on the forum to brag about how he defeated the dragon with the worst character that even rankers couldn't beat. Before he can submit it, he receives notifications that the wrong ending has been achieved, and 90% of the Ether World has been destroyed. The protagonist feels confused as to what is happening to him. Then a notification alerts him to reach the true ending, and the protagonist gets transported away from the gaming room. Then he opens his eyes and wonders what happened. He is in a broken building and has no idea where he is. Then he notices a mirror nearby and approaches it. But when he gazes into it, he notices Beck Uziel, the character he was playing in the game. Then a notification appears, displaying episode 1 Escape the Chase. He recalls that it was the prologue journey for the character Beck. He can't believe what's going on and checks his pocket to find an admittance certificate to Stella Academy, convincing him that he's now in the ether world, but he's sad that he got Beck Uziel, the world's worst character. But then he recalls the notification that instructed him to achieve the true ending. However, he claims the game has no true ending and instead has several endings. Then he realizes that no one has reached the true finish until now. Then he decides he can think about it later, since according to his memory, just after Beck wakes up, the guys that were looking for him will burst into the hut he is staying in and head to the window to monitor the situation. As expected, people were looking for him. He instantly hides and decides he needs to leave. Then the head of the group looking for him sees the hut and commands his members to check in it. Note, as our protagonist is currently in the body of Beck Uziel, I will refer to him as Beck. Returning to the story, Beck appears to be tense, unsure what to do because there is a limit to how long he can escape them and he cannot fight them. Then an announcement appears, informing him that he can use the ability Blink. Beck is surprised to learn that he can now use Blink. He cannot accumulate mana in his body since he suffers from magic syndrome, and can only hope to use Blink. It was also the spell he had practiced for the last 10 years. However, Beck believes that, despite using the skill for the last 10 years, he only used it in the game while controlling his character with a mouse and keyboard. Then he hears the footsteps of those who are chasing him, and decides to try it once because it is the only other option available at the moment. He begins to flee the hut, but is noticed by the group of people that is pursuing him. They also start chasing him, and Beck believes the first part of the tutorial has begun. The goal is to avoid pursuers by blinking. Beck knows that those people are wearing magic boots that allow them to run quickly. The only way for him to escape is to use his blink. He calms himself down and believes the timing is ingrained in his muscle memory because he has used the blink countless times previously. The pursuers who are already behind Beck abuse him and demand that he stop. Beck is preparing to use the blink at the perfect moment. However, the biggest downside of blinks is that if the user loses control of the distance and collides with an object, he will die instantly. However, for Beck it is different and uses it before the man behind him slashes him. Beck effectively uses it. Group members are shocked to learn that Beck is a mage with the ability to use blink. The leader shouts, "Good for them!" as the user is paralyzed for 2 seconds. He is startled when Beck does not stop but continues to run even faster. Then, as Beck runs, he realizes he needs to take advantage of the uneven terrain, as players who don't know how to use blink will never make it to the next episode. In truth, 99% of the gamers who tried Beck Uziel failed this tutorial. Those 1% who made it through the tutorial were unable to overcome the barrier of blink distance control and continuous blinking. However, Beck was an exception. As he blinks continuously, he leaves the group behind. They think he's crazy to use blink in these terrains. The leader orders the mages to move forward and attack him with long-range spells. Beck notices that mages are attempting to take him down, and remembers that the second part of the tutorial requires him to utilize blink to avoid the magical arrows flying at him. However, he believes that in the game, he could see anything behind him and avoid it. But he doesn't know what to do now. Then a notification appears, indicating that Magic's Leakage Syndrome's derivative skills, Sixth Sense, and Cognitive Acceleration are being used. Because of his abilities, he was able to sense the magical arrows behind him and dodge them without turning back. As the concentration of the arrows increases, he uses the blink at the perfect time to avoid the attacks. Then he continues to run until he reaches the last part of the tutorial, which involves crossing a canyon while utilizing blink. To accomplish this, he has to control the distance he travels perfectly while using blink. After that, he meets the passing mages and escapes with them, and the tutorial ends there. But the challenging part for him is to cancel the blink spell at the correct time, as blink occurs in 0.1 seconds. So if he fails once, he will die immediately. Also, there are roughly 20 floating boulders. He curses at the guy who created this tutorial. Then he thinks he can cross the canyon, but the problem is that people are pursuing him, as they will arrive before he can reach the other end of the canyon. Then he believes that the only way for him to survive is to kill everyone. Then he flees and hides himself before they reach the canyon. While hiding, he feels it's insane to believe he can kill them because he's never fought once in his life. If it were a game, the system would not allow him to kill any of them. Yet, however, because it is a reality, he may do whatever he wants and is not bound by the system's rules. And he feels no guilt about killing them, not because they killed his parents, according to the story, but because he believes he can win. Then, as they approach the canyon, Beck reveals his location, and the members begin to dash towards him. The first guy believes he's an idiot for thinking he can take them on alone and rushes towards him. However, as he enters the blink radius, Beck triggers the blink and stabs him immediately. Beck believes that even though he can feel blood streaming down his hands, he has no remorse for killing them in order to survive, and he strikes the guy in the neck with the knife before kicking him towards the group. They're frightened, but the boss orders them to catch him. As Beck continues to flee, he notices that it has become unusually silent and glances back to check whether they are after him. Then he understands the group has gone to the higher region to launch a magical attack on him. The magicians launch a tremendous fire strike that causes Beck to worry, but when he sees a tree branch, he blinks towards it to avoid the attack. A member believes he has died and blames Beck for being so arrogant up until then. But then he senses he isn't there, and before he realizes where he is, Beck jumps from above him and delivers a deadly blow, killing him. Then he thinks, for the time being, only 2 of them remain for him to kill, although 2 more members are lagging behind and could catch up at any time. Then the head of the group thinks he is a strange individual with an uncanny reaction time for a wizard and asks Beck who he is. Beck does not respond, but believes his reaction time is faster than most professional gamers, but only when he is gaming, not in real life. So he needs to terminate this as soon as possible because he can't keep dodging their attacks forever, especially when they are in close range. With a confident expression on his face, the commander claims to have already determined Beck's fighting technique. He thinks this guy has just utilized blink and dagger, so if he defends his neck and face, he will be unable to accomplish anything and uses his aura to cover his sword, and launches an attack called Ice Wall, which builds walls of ice between them, and believes he is going to die after impacting his ice wall. But Beck is a Chad, as he kills the other guy since the leader had been concentrating solely on himself. The leader is taken aback because Beck had previously been running like a dog and wonders how he is now kicking their ass. Beck, with a taunting expression, thanks him for helping him get better at it. The leader is enraged after hearing this and assures Beck that he will definitely kill him this time. Then Beck picks up the spear and throws it at the leader. Leader realizes Beck is throwing the spear to distract him, cuts the spear strike, and prepares to counterattack him. Leader assumed Beck would attack him from behind and turned. However, Beck delivers a vital hit to his heart from the front. Then a message shows that Episode 1, Escape Your Pursuers, has ended. Then another notification informs him that the Constellation Project rewarded him for uniquely constructing the story. Beck sits down and tries to recover, exhausted from the battle. Then, when he sees the dead body, he realizes it's no longer a dream because he used his first blink, fought his first battle, and murdered someone for the first time to survive. Then he gets up to escape the area by crossing the canyon. Then he learns he can take their money and loot both bodies, accumulating 2 million in credit, which is equivalent to 2 million won on Earth. Now he proceeds to cross the canyon and sees the group of mages that appears in the tutorial. Who waves at Beck, Beck waves back. One of the group members asks whether he can cross the canyon since there is no bridge. Beck confirms that he can, and a wizard instructs the group to wait for a while because Beck said he will cross the canyon. However, another member is concerned because the canyon requires at least a third-class knight to get through it. But then Beck begins to use the blink and easily gets through some boulders. After witnessing this, mages are taken aback by his ability to use blink, while a girl covered in clocks watches him from behind. Then one member says that with the blink ability, the user cannot control the direction or distance. So he becomes confused as to how Beck uses the blink with such precision. The mage then observes 2 persons behind him and wonders if they are also with the boy. They are 2 individuals who were left behind by the group that was targeting Beck. They begin casting magic to kill Beck and attack him with fire magic. The mages group warns Beck about the oncoming attack. Beck was able to avoid the strike at the last moment and discover they're the same mercenary group as before, and understands that evading all of their magical attacks is impossible due to Blink's 3-second cooldown, and plans to look for the next floating boulder to teleport to. But before he could move, another magical strike came at him, which he barely dodged. But the stone he was standing on was cut in half, causing him to fall. Then he realizes that all of the flying stones are too far away from him, so he blinks to the nearest one and barely grasps the stone's edge. But before he could be relieved, he spotted a fire attack headed his way and assumed it was the end of his life because he would die as a result of the attack. However, another ice magic with lighting around it neutralized the fire attack. Beck is amazed by the mage's ability to use 2 magical characteristics and to meet them in the tutorial round. He believes the caster precisely calculated the trajectory without spending any mana and wonders who the mage was. We can see that the caster was the female who is covered up by the clock. The mercenary magicians, terrified and pissed off, fled the scene. Beck, still hanging at the edge of the stone, is relieved to see this and believes he can finally live. Then, after he crosses the canyon and joins the group, he approaches the girl who saved him and thanks her. She says she didn't do it to receive gratitude, so he doesn't have to worry about it. Beck says all right and thinks she has the prettiest voice he has ever heard, even if she appears kind of difficult to approach. Then he considers the mercenary organization, sometimes known as bandits that loot nearby villages. However, in reality, Dark Demon Cult is responsible for the majority of such operations. However, they cannot break into the mage's territory, and the dark demonic humans will be unable to pursue him. And since they attack random villages, they have no idea who he is. Then a notification appears, indicating the beginning of episode 2. Enroll in the Stellar Academy. He believes the second episode is not too difficult, but he is annoyed when he has to go back to school at his age. Then we see Beak traveling with the mages who helped him. When he sleeps, he has a dream about a small child who tells his mother that he wants to be a mage when he grows up. His mother says she believes in him. Then, after working very hard to save money, Mom and Dad purchased him a magic textbook. Then he studied hard, confident that he would make his parents happy. But one day, his ambitions fell apart when he learned he had a rare condition called mana leakage syndrome. The small child begins to cry, feeling that he will no longer be able to realize his dream. It was actually a memory from Beck Uziel's childhood. Then, Beck wakes up with a slight headache and discovers it is already morning. Then a mage says he was going to wake him up, but he's glad he woke up already. He informs him that they will arrive in Lazoica, the satellite city of Arcanium, soon. However, the magicians decide to take a break before resuming their journey. As the Beck steps out and begins to stretch, he discovers the blue-haired girl who saved him is staring at him. And as he returns her gaze, she turns and walks away. Beck believes that was cold, but then concludes that everything is alright because everything is going similar to the timeline of the game. Then we see the magical world known as Ether World. It also includes cities, trains, and flying ships, as well as wrap holes that could transfer people from one location to another, making long-distance travel more convenient. And now, Beck with mage friends he met along the way are on their way to Lazoica City to get on a flying ship. Lazoica is on the way to Arcanium, and the main episode will start when they get to Arcanium, the city of magic. Arcanium has renowned magic towers, mage knight orders, and 5 renowned academies. In them, the academy with the most powerful mages, as well as the most excelling students, is Stella Academy. So Stella is filled with geniuses and nobles from all over the world. And he still doesn't understand how Beck got into a place like that. Then he realizes he hasn't checked his skills yet and opens the status window. He observes the sixth sense and detection acceleration, and believes that if he hadn't had these powers, he would have died long ago. He has a cursed physique that prevents him from accumulating mana, which is an inherent curse in Beck's body. However, this also allows him to detect mana around him using his sixth sense. Bro is Flash with Spider Sense. And, similar to Spider Sense, his sixth sense allows him to sense any strikes going towards him even if he is not looking that direction. The detection acceleration allows him to notice things as if time has slowed down, even if the attack approaching him is faster than human beings can detect. These skills are important for Beck because he is unable to use mana. However, he cannot utilize the sixth sense for long because it requires a lot of mental energy. Then look at his stats, which are not bad for a starter. Then he adds that in the ether world, there are multiple levels, one for each stat. The levels measure the skills, while the stars measure the stats. And the greatest number of stars a stat can have is 9, which is impossible to achieve. Because he has been playing this game for over 10 years, the highest he has achieved is 8 stars in stamina and sensitivity. Then he decides that, for the time being, he should simply invest in sensitivity to improve his sixth sense, which will also raise his reaction speed. He can also improve his stamina and flexibility using other methods. But the issue is his mana leakage syndrome. If he does not train it, he will not be able to survive very long. He believes he should improve it to the secrets of nature physique as soon as possible. Finally, he must find a technique to reinforce mana leakage syndrome, as it exists within the Stella Academy. This also means that he has no choice but to attend Stella Academy in order to save the world and treat his sickness. Beck reflects on how much he dislikes going to the academy and wishes he had something to assist him out there. The messages show there are some unread notifications, but Beck dismisses them because they need to continue their journey. Before he gets into the carriage, we notice the blue-haired girl staring at him. What's her problem, man? Just talk already. Okay, back to the story. We find Beck has boarded the floating ship that is traveling towards the Arcanium. The pilots announce that they should take a seat for their safety. I don't see any seats, though. So people start to notice Beck and criticize him for wandering around like a confused kid, assuming he's on the floating ship for the first time. He labels him a country bumpkin, loudly expresses his confusion as to why Stella, which is considered to be the most prominent academy in the world, must allow peasants in. Beck realizes they are attempting to pick fights with him and ignores them, believing that children are the same wherever he goes. The bully guy becomes enraged and orders Beck to stop, after which everyone gossips about someone. Because of the ruckus, the bully turns to see what is going on. Then, a girl with white hair is presented. She is the princess of the Adalabit kingdom, Hong Bayan Adalabit. As the bully boy rushes to greet her, he says, "Your Highness." She gives him a cold, menacing look that scares the heck out of him. She walks by everyone without a glance. Then Beck says she's the world's villainess. Well, she is the main character in the game. However, she and the main character are constantly arguing. She dies in the end, and no matter whatever path you pick in the game, she is never able to survive since she is brutally murdered in certain endings or bullied by the entire academy before being expelled. In some way, she goes through something so terrible she never appears in public. Beck believes the developers must have held personal hate for her for putting her to such suffering. However, he is aware that she is popular among male players due to her attractiveness. He also believes she might kill him if he speaks to her, and head to the cafeteria as he is hungry, then returns after noticing the price tags, figuring he'll eat something when he gets to Arcanum. The pilot then announces that they will be in Arcanium in 10 minutes and requests that everyone return to the first floor, and repeats the statement as we see the main characters in the story. Beck gets excited since the actual story is about to start now. Then we see him worrying about whether he can actually survive the Stella Academy. Then he considers whether he can even survive in this world, as it will be attacked by the Dark Demon Dragon with the assistance of Dark Demon humans. He wishes he had something to help him in his current condition. Then he remembers he has some notifications that he hasn't checked yet and opens them. A notification emerges informing him that the Constellatio project has offered him unique benefits and has presented him with several options from which he can choose. Beck thinks over his options and considers a product called Returning Light or Praise of the Flash. However, the system warns him that the item's grade is too high and will be severely downgraded. Then he inquires about an ability called Hyperspace Blink. The system rejects him, claiming that the skill is an advanced version of the Blink skill that cannot be obtained. The system then proposes that he utilize the reward to slightly boost his Blink skill. Beck is taken aback by the system and inquires whether the system itself has been downgraded. The system responds that due to a lack of narrative power, the system's full power cannot be activated. Beck questions the meaning of narrative power. The system responds that the force that drives the story forward is known as narrative power, and as he explores more of the story, he accumulates more narrative power. Beck understands that the system is not providing stuff as he is a noob and the items are late-game items. Then he asks about Bulbul glasses. The system agrees to his request and provides him with Bulbul glasses. Beck believes he never imagined a day when he would truly wear Bulbul glasses. It's an object that holds all of the information on the items he's collected while playing the game. Beck adds that in the Ether world, it is impossible to recall and read information about hunted monsters or learn knowledge. Therefore, players created numerous devices to store information in their own unique ways, and his method was to store it in Bulbul glasses. Then Beck opens the folder, and a variety of options appear, with each sort of content grouped into separate folders. Beck is happy with the Bulbul glasses, and believes it will be valuable in regaining the ability he used to have in the game. Then as he walks down the corridor, he overhears everyone talking about the blue-haired girl who saved his life. They call her Acel. Her father is Dutch Malf, a traitor who betrayed his nation. They are shocked that she would dare to show her face there. Beck notices her and recalls that his glasses can register or verify character information within the story. Then her characteristics reveal that she is a fake heroine. Beck explains that even though he is in the game called Ether World, the game is based on a romance fantasy novel titled Don't Love the Princess. The novel is about its heroine, Acel, who had lost her entire family. But she continues to grow by confronting the villainous Hong Baiyin's plans and eventually ends up with the male protagonist. Her revenge plot ultimately disappears and the male characters protect her. It had a tragic ending after receiving negative criticism from its readers. However, the actual issue is that, while the game's world is based on the novel, the story has been altered completely differently. In the game, an original character named Flame was introduced, who took on the role of the heroine. Furthermore, this character, Flame, had a backstory. The narrative went that she was a woman living a normal life on Earth who loved reading the novel Don't Love the Princess and was transported to this world. So in contrast to the novel, Acel became a fake heroine in the game, while Flame became the true heroine. Furthermore, several players attempted to save her numerous times, but none were successful in any method. Beck believes it has nothing to do with him. However, he claims to have seen her somewhere before. I guess he doesn't know her because she was the one who saved her. Back to the story, we're at Stella Academy, and students are standing in an open space while a person gives a lecture about how dark humans are invading them by opening the Persona Gate, and it's the mage's destiny to stop them. Then, as the lecture ends, he announces an oath ceremony for the 4 students who were admitted with high scores, including the freshman representative, and invites the young people to the platform. Everyone stands on the stage. Beck believes everyone's faces are dazzling, fitting their roles as main characters. The brightest among them is freshman representative Ma Yuzhao. Everyone talks about him because he is the student with the highest score. Also, he is very attractive. According to Beck, Ma Yuzhao is the figure who most embodies the words throughout heaven and earth. I alone am the honored one. Bro thinks he's Satoru Gojo. Beck adds that Ma Yuzhao would reach a mana status of 9 stars, which is considered impossible, bringing him near to the world of deities. Furthermore, he is a natural genius among geniuses, capable of controlling all elements of the planet. So Beck believes that even if he cannot achieve the true ending, he must at least try to avoid the terrible endings by bringing Ma Yuzhao to the good side. However, this will also be determined by Flame's behavior, and believes it is a good idea to get along with her because she comes from the same world as him. Things could also get difficult if she considers him an enemy, but he isn't scared because he has more information than her and thinks he can play it safe. But he's upset that his worth in the game isn't even comparable to that of a shop NPC in the village, while Flame is the game's heroine. Furthermore, she possesses the unique power to cleanse dark demonic humans. Aside from that, she has the capacity to impoverish anyone around her. In other words, she can exhaust the strength of people around her. So he believes that being around her will definitely impact him. As a result, he thinks that since his part is that of a supporting character, he will avoid being too engaged with the main characters. With that, the entrance ceremony concludes. Then a notification appears stating Episode 2, Enroll into the Stella Academy, has been completed. The scene shifts to Stella Academy, and inside in one of the classrooms, Beck thinks it feels strange to be back in high school after having graduated from it a long time ago. Then gazes upon the little watch. It is a Stella pocket watch that identifies students at the institution. This watch grants you preferential treatment and service compared to people who have Magic Warrior licenses. Beck expresses excitement about using it. Then the teacher enters and instructs everyone to take their seats, prepare for exams, put away all materials, and keep writing supplies. Those who wish to use glasses should get them inspected first. He thinks so he has to take an exam on his first day, and explains Stella Academy's curriculum surpasses that of other Korean institutions. It's called a class placement exam. When the teacher announces the start of the exam, Beck looks down and says he doesn't understand. The class placement exam is not related to the entrance exam, which is notoriously demanding. Students are placed from F to S classes based on their exam results. The majority of playable characters belong to the S class. Beck, who consistently ranks lowest in school, considers submitting a blank page but worries about expulsion. He looks over at Ma Yuziang, who yawns out of boredom. Beck says he expected nothing less from a genius like him after seeing his work finished. And it's no surprise that he's always bored. He was born into the world's most powerful family and possesses unparalleled intelligence and talent, making life extremely easy for him. As a result, depending on how the female lead flame acts will determine which side he will take, whether good or evil. Yasong is likely to be of great interest to the dark demonic humans who seek to destroy humanity. Beck explains Ma Yuziang's primary concern is his family. Then Beck feels compelled to compare himself to geniuses, leading him to question his abilities. He wonders if he can use his bulbul glasses on this and pulls them out, saying he has nothing to lose. The professor approaches him and questions him about his glasses, stating that if he was going to use them, he should have had them examined first. The professor decides to check them. He pours some mana into it and examines it. Beck expressed if he gets caught, he may be expelled. The window displays a notification prompting him to activate the glasses. He replies no and tells them to sleep. The professor thoroughly examines and returns the item, stating that it is not magical. However, he is warned to examine it beforehand the next time. Beck claims that if the glasses had worked, the situation would have been much more serious. When he turns on the glasses, he sees the answers. He thinks it's a jackpot and wonders what happens if he gets first place. He begins writing, thinking about escaping F class and possibly advancing to a class. When the professor announces that the exam has ended, Beck is surprised because he barely completed 3 questions. The papers are then flung at the professor. The professor begins to look at them. Beck claims that he hoped he'd be able to avoid F class, but he's now stuck there. Then, as he gazes towards the professor, he yells at him to give him his glasses. When Beck hands over his glasses, the professor examines them again, saying there is no way. He instructs a pupil to go bring Dr. Gray to him. Beck wonders what's wrong, thinking that he wrote the answers clearly to avoid being accused of cheating, and wonders if he got caught. Then the professor asks Dr. Grayman what he thinks. He examines the glasses, remarking that the fact that he answered the question is odd. When the professor asks if Grayman cheated, he responds no, as he doesn't feel any magic from the glasses or his belongings, so he must have solved it using his own abilities. Grayman finds it interesting and instructs Professor Lee Hanwal to apologize to the student and provide appropriate guidance. Professor Lee apologizes to Beck. Beck believes he cheated and would face consequences if the glasses were turned on. Beck urges Professor Lee not to worry about it because it happens from time to time and to be cautious going forward. The scene shifts to Professor Lee's office, where he appears to be reviewing documents and reflecting on something. A coworker asks if he's grading freshmen' exam papers. He responds yes, and she says that she heard that there are many interesting freshmen this year. Then it is revealed that she is a member of the Council of Elders, and her name is Deltaman. Hanwal says, apparently yes. Then he lists some talented students, Hong Bien, who is from the most well-known fire magic family. Jeremy, The crown prince of the Scalvan Empire, was chosen as the crown prince at the age of 12 due to his magical abilities and has since overcome his older brothers in the race for the crown. Hei Wonriang is the successor of the Magic Tower Master and hails from the world's greatest magic tower, the Full Moon Tower. According to her, the overwhelming number of brilliant students made it difficult to select appropriate exam questions. But still, she felt the questions were very interesting. Hanwal says that he is glad that they were to his liking. Professor Lee thinks, as she mentioned, that the exam's first 3 questions were intentionally difficult for students to answer. The 3 questions were designed to test flexibility, with the option to skip if unable to answer. Second, how would you tackle a problem not covered in any of the books they've studied? He argues that the era of magic, dominated by memory and theory, has come to an end. This era requires warfare employing quick judgment and creative thinking. But the questions were not intended to be answered. Over 1,000 of the 1,141 students left them blank. However, the majority of the 100 students who attempted the questions couldn't get a single answer correct. Only 3 freshman students answered all 3 correctly. Ma Yusong, a prodigy of the century and Flame, who received special admittance from the principal, whose talents are compared very closely to Ma Yusong. Then there's Beck. Yusong and Flame are geniuses, but he claims Beck received the lowest admittance score. He hadn't expected him to solve them at all, especially when he failed to solve any other problems. Edeltaman asks why he is so interested in the scores of new students and whether there is one that doesn't make sense. She then adds that despite numerous formulas and equations failing to answer the problem, they could be solved without understanding anything. Lee asks if she believes the student is a genius. She states that it might be a coincidence. She departs, and he sits, staring at the Beck admissions paper. We discover that the principal only allowed Beck in because of his control over the blink ability. Professor Lee thinks that students granted special admission by the principal are probably special. He smiles, saying a mage specializing in blink, he will soon determine if it was a coincidence. Students discuss the class assignment, which was posted on the bulletin board. Students wonder what class they'll get. One of them says his mother told him not to come home if he wasn't in a class. Beck can't believe he has to see it in person when in the game he can view it with a single click. As he approaches the board, a student recognizes him as Beck Yesiel, who got a 0 in the entrance exam's magic application part. They openly insult him, wondering how he got into Stella and proposing they have to reconsider Stella's standards now. Beck is unconcerned with their yapping and is only interested in learning his class placement. He looks up and his name is not in the F class. He worries that he failed because he only answered 3 questions. Some students claim his name should not be there and that there is a mistake in the results. They discussed other students' double-digit grades and were placed in the A class. Beck wonders what they are talking about this time, and goes over to check it out and discovers his name in the S class. He claims this is impossible and that only the most exceptional students are placed in S class. The S class is different from the other grades with multiple classes per grade, whereas Class S has only 41 students and 1 class. He admits that this is a mistake and is causing him worry. He says he's forced to deal with the main characters because he'll run into them more frequently now. He fears that becoming involved with the protagonist will endanger his already short life, but he cannot change his class quickly. He plans to maintain a low profile and leave the place. We saw Flame staring at him. It cuts to a room where we witness Bai Yun being hit by her mother Hong Yil, who is also a fire element professor, while asking how she got 3 questions wrong, especially Acel got 2 correct. She insults her by claiming that she was unable to answer questions that even insects correctly answered, implying that she is inferior to insects. So she should think of herself as a bug and try it again. She asks whether she understands, and Bai Yun replies in a weak tone, yes. Her mother looks down at her and lets out a sigh, and says to listen to her, since she cannot afford to be like her. As she was chased out of the kingdom and is holding on to a stupid professor's job, and like her she cannot become the shame of a kingdom. She says that she needs to become better than her sister. Her mother starts to smile and asks whether she understands. Again, Bai Yun answers yes, but she doesn't understand. She simply lives and solves problems the way she was taught. And how does she solve a problem that she hasn't been taught? She starts crying, asking why she is being tormented this way. Scene swifts. In the S class, Beck expresses his dissatisfaction with the asocial weirdos in his class. Then he overhears students asking how he got there. Some parents objected to him being in their class, but the school assured them he was qualified. Beck chuckles and says he looks like an outsider. But he also realizes that, having worked hard since they were children to get into that class, he would be annoyed if a known fool like him was also in the same class, since it is also the most prestigious class in the academy. Their classes, however, are subject to change based on performance. However, there have been very few incidents of people getting demoted, and more people will move from A to S class. However, he is still shocked that all of the game characters are in front of him. Most of these students will go on to become popular around the world, and 5 of them may betray the magical world. And one of them is Ma Yusong. Beck glances at Flame and says, "It would be nice if you could stop it from happening." Professor Lee enters and asks them to sit down. Beck is taken aback and Professor Lee adds it's a pleasure to meet them all. He is confident some people know who he is but says he will properly introduce himself. He is their Professor Lee Hanwal. Students mention that the number of dark demonic humans he killed has reached 4 digits. He is a 7th class magic warrior. He is truly on another level. He advises them to sit down, saying there appear to be a lot of talented people here, as well as a very unique student while looking towards Beck. Then he says the school is known for its focus on producing combat mages, so they will receive a tough education over 3 years. He doesn't expect anyone to follow, but he wants them to give their all throughout this period. He asks if anyone has any questions. Nobody says anything, so he says good. Bi-Yun enters the room with an injury on her face. Beck is startled that Bi-Yun is late, as she follows the rules more than anybody else. She walks to Lee, and Beck wonders what happened. He puts on his glasses to check things out. Aside from the fact that she is almost certain to die, he does not notice anything unusual. But he claims she is doomed to die because of Flame or Azel, which, of course, is the fate of a villain, not because she is bad. He wishes to save her, but he is not in a position to assist anyone. Lee tells her to take a seat. Beck admits he feels awful but can only maintain his distance. But he is confused, as she walks straight up to him and looks down at him. Then she takes the seat right next to him. He gets confused by the sensation and feels uneasy. Lee informs they will be having a staff succession ceremony before the commencement of the class to ensure proper equipment. Beck finds it annoying that staff choices for S and A classes would be done simultaneously, but he's looking forward to it. Stella Academy hosts 2 major events, including the familiar contract ceremony. The other event is the staff succession ceremony. Stella Academy is a prestigious academy, so its staff succession ceremony is no less exceptional. They move to a separate location, and Lee asks if everyone is present. According to him, staves ranging from the lowest class to the high middle class are prepared here. Simply approach a preferred stave and take the item. The process of switching staves is difficult, so he advises them to choose the staff carefully. Beck says they aren't the ones picking their staff, it's the other way around. The staff only respond to those they deem worthy of commanding them, causing a resonance effect. It means that you can't use the high-level ones just because you want to. He looks around, wondering which one he should choose. He thinks he would have chosen one worthy of F-class previously, but now that he is in S-class, he must be more careful. He claims that the wand is the most appropriate staff for his role. He describes how staff are split into 2 categories, short form and long form. The Knight class typically uses short forms to quickly cast magic spells. Long form is typically used for single spells with longer cast times. Others wonder what Beck will choose, saying surely he has no problem with the resonance effect since he is in the S-class. He still doesn't care about their opinions and says people can believe whatever they want. When someone approaches Beck, he asks about their identity. He introduces himself as Uslek, but Beck believes he has never heard of him before. When Yuslek asks which staff he intends to choose, he responds that he will choose anything. Yuslek mocks him, telling him to get a staff that is suitable for the commoners. And he shouldn't create problems for the professors. Beck realizes he is attempting to insult him and tells him not to cause any problems before leaving. Yuslek becomes embarrassed and shouts at him. If he is looking for a fight, Beck ignores him as annoying and puts on his glasses. It indicates that Yuslek is just a third-rate, and Beck recognizes he's just a damn extra and feels sorry for him. Yuslek points out the one he intends to choose and tells Beck to watch him closely. Beck glances at it and identifies the Edmarietta Myrai, which should be the highest here. High middle-class staves are typically used by professional magic warriors. However, even with exceptional talent, students usually go for the middle-low classes, because even professional magic warriors struggle to hold middle-low-class staves. He notes that there is another high middle-class stave here in addition to the Edmarietta Myrai, but that is not there for someone to pick. But it's simply here to flex. Then Lee instructs everyone to stand in front of their chosen staves. We witness the main characters Hei Wonriang and Prince Jeremy Scalvin. And even Princess Bai Yun chose their staves. They were all accepted by middle-class staff, resulting in a significant response. Students argue that certified magicians can only use middle-class staves, which they consider ridiculous. Yuslek begins to feel envious of them, so he promises to show them what he can achieve. Yuslek's approach to his stave, students raises questions about his intention to attain a middle-high level stave. He extends his hand, intending to demonstrate his true talent. Bro was struck by lightning and left on the floor in pain after forgetting he was an extra character, causing the resonance to fail. The students suggest that someone call a professor. They think it will be impossible to select high middle-class staff. Beck believes they should give up, because only one individual will receive one. Ma Yusong approaches it. He looks down at it, smirking. The other students wonder if he's going to try and get it, saying they doubt even he could handle the Ed Murray Miri. As he holds it, a bright resonant light appears. Then we notice Ma Yusong is smirking, as he is able to resonate with the staff. Students are astonished and question his ability to wield a high middle-class stave. Beck claims he expected it, and now others will realize how talented he is. Then Ma Yusong glances towards Beck, who wonders if he is gazing at him. He smiles at him. Beck wonders if he's lost his mind. Then he remembers Flame managed to acquire another high middle-class stave called Terivon. However, this might be where the route will be decided, as only if Flame manages to get the stave, Yusong will take interest in her due to her genius, opening the Yusong route. However, selecting a different stave would result in a different outcome. He needs to use Flame to bring Yusong to their side. He finally finds her and notices her approaching the Terevin stave. He thinks that's where Terevin is. He watches, wondering what she will do. When she approaches the item, he urges her to take it for Yusong to become interested in Flame. And there's a chance of a good ending, but she just ignores it and goes to choose another stave. This surprises him and makes him question why she isn't interested in Terevin. He wonders if she is unaware of the situation, implying that she may be lacking information. In either case, that is bad for them. As the female lead, he knows she can resonate with any stave. However, she may choose an unusual route, and they may miss out on the good endings ones. He realizes he has no choice except to push Terevin on her. He activates Blink, stating that he must do so. He lunges toward her, and she looks astonished, questioning when he got behind her. Beck asks her which staff she will choose, and she wonders why he wants to know. He states that she appeared lost. She tells him it's none of his business and turns away. He instructs her to wait and thinks something is strange. He explains. Flame's sociable nature leads her to be nice to everyone, but she is really cold towards him, and he cannot give up because his life depends on it. He claims he truly wants to help her choose a perfect one. She tells him to mind his own business. He attempts to suggest a perfect stave for her, but she becomes irritated and asks what the hell do you know about staves? Beck wonders if he did something wrong and if she despises extras. He states that he has heard a lot about her and believes she could resonate with this one. She questions whether he is referring to Terevin. He says yes to that one. As Terivon flies into his hand, He experiences a strange sensation and wonders what is going on. He gently opens his eyes, admitting that it scared him. After Terryvon is discovered in his hand, he panics as he had intended to give it to Flame. He begins sweating nervously and wonders why Terryvon is in his hands. Flame is meant to choose it, so he glances at her and anxiously calls her name. She suppresses her rage and asks, "Why?" He tells her it's nothing. He knows he is royally pooked. The scene swifts, and we see Flame is seen walking with other students as they gossip about how 2 students grabbed high mid-class staves. Previously, over the entire history, only 5 people have grabbed them, but now 2 persons from the same year do so. However, one of the students can only utilize Blink. They claim it's basic magic, but it's also rare garbage magic. They begin to wonder whether something went wrong, but Flame remains deep in thinking. The scene shifts to the self-study hall, where she walks along the hallway, thinking everything is peaceful now, and that no matter where she walked, all she heard were other kids discussing the 2 students grabbing a high mid-class stave. But she doesn't get it. She can't believe he grabbed Terevin. After reading the novel 3 times, she saw no mention of the character Beck. Also, according to her narrative, no one could resonate with Terevin, yet he did so effortlessly. She took it like he was trying to show off to her, but she dismissed it for the time being. Other students approached her and asked if she planned to study. She smiles warmly and asks whether they think she is a nerd or something, referring to them as kids. They say she's always here studying. She insists it's not like that. Someone questions why she refers to them as kids when they are all the same age. She explains it's a habit, as she was treated older where she lived. She nervously laughs, believing she had to act like a child now that she's in the story. When asked if she plans to study alone, she recognizes the girl as Jackie. She wonders why her hairstyle is the same as hers. She adds she won't be alone because a special extra meeting is coming up, which she will attend, but she needs to leave. She says they can eat together next time and takes her leave. Then, as she walks in the corridor, she thinks girls at this age are difficult to deal with, and it is quite hard to be a student at her age. Then she runs into someone, and they call her name. She looks up and realizes it's Hei Wonriang. He asks if she is okay, and she responds yes. But he senses that something is wrong and asks whether she's okay. She wonders whether he is concerned, but responds that she is all right. He asks if she intends to self-study. She responds yes and inquires whether he is heading to the S-rank training hall. He emphasizes the importance of training. She accuses him of being very honest, and he responds that she should not say such things. He glances at her, and she wonders what he wants before he smirks and fixes her hair bow. Then he says he'll see her later. She watches him leave and says that's bland. She then turns to see Jackie watching her from a distance. She waves at her, but she runs away, Flame deciding it doesn't matter. It is not the right moment for this. During the special supplementary meeting, she mentioned that Acel and Bayun are expected to attend, so she believes it will be important to have the female lead and the villain face off. When she opens the door, she notices Ma Yusong being friendly with Beck, who appears irritated. She notices that the presenter is an A-rank named Kyle, and he appears nervous. She says that he probably didn't expect so many S-class students to be participating, and finds it odd that even Ma Yusong is here. She thinks he is the world's male lead, and he appears to be interested in Beck for some reason. She believes it's not a coincidence that Beck only answered the 3 important questions. She wonders if he was aware that answering those questions would allow him to reach the S-class. She adds that if he had known this beforehand, he is dangerous. While Beck simply wishes someone would take Yusong off his hands. Yusong asks Beck why he came here, stating that he does not need to listen to this. When asked if he has a unique reason, Beck responds no. But he tells himself that he came because his grades are terrible. Beck wonders why Yusong is interested in him. Then Kyle says it's time to get started, and they'll go over the placement exam problems, which are also known as the 3 questions from hell, due to their level of difficulty. Also because he was able to solve one of them. Kyle is irritated at seeing so many S-rank students. In order to gain more influence, he aimed to educate stupid nobles. Then he sees Beck and realizes he might still be able to expand his influence. As Beck had the lowest ranking, he smirks, promising to show him that he is greater than he is. Kyle puts the question on the board and explains how he solved it. He says that the problem is a trap, as it results in an error. Yusong smirks and asks Beck whether he also believes that Kyle is correct. Yusong eagerly awaits Beck's response, but Beck is ignorant of the 3 questions from hell. But they are the questions he solved in the class placement exam. Beck then decides to drop the act and decides to be honest and admits he doesn't know. Kyle's writing is interrupted by students who question Kyle's accuracy. Beck panics and wonders why everyone is staring at him that way. Kyle breaks the piece of chalk and gets angry at Beck for claiming that Kyle was doing it wrong, so asks Beck to come down and solve it himself. Beck questions what he is doing, but Yusong, who appears to enjoy the drama, encourages him. Beck realizes Yusong did this on purpose. Beck goes down, claiming he'll just get it done quickly. Flame and Baiyun both watch him as he walks up to the board and puts on his glasses, thinking the 3 questions from hell is an exaggeration, as it's simply a pun quiz. He uses the example of a wizard casting a spell saying, "Dear Earth, shed tears. There will be twice as much dirt as before." Why would that be? He explains that if dirt cries out, it means it is in a stage of decomposition. He finds it absurd and wonders who came up with this kind of problem. But he knows Kyle solved the problem as if it were a math problem. He mentions dirt splitting as it cries or something like that. Beck says that Kyle's method was wrong, but he was lucky to receive the correct answer. However, he would not be able to solve similar problems if he used the same method. Beck says that he cannot provide advice on how to solve the problem, but he can point out his mistakes, and explains while the problem mentions earth, what if it's wind or water? When asked if his method would still work, Kyle is surprised and says he will use an alternative approach for a different solution. Then Beck says that why his method is wrong, and it was pure luck he got the answer right, not due to the test's design. Kyle tries to respond, but as he can't find the words, he admits Beck is correct. Beck feels sorry for destroying his confidence and continues talking to Kyle, and gives him advice on the problems. Kyle takes notes, as do the other students. Flame finds it amazing that other students are taking notes on what he is saying. She believes Acel and Baiyun should have been arguing, but are now distracted by the problem. Flame is concerned that this is not okay. After the class is over, we see Yusong leaves. He waves at Beck, who responds accordingly. After Yusong leaves, Beck is disappointed that he got involved with Yusong, and does not want to see him ever again. He says it's because of Teravan. However, he still doesn't understand why Yusong came to him. He realizes he can't use Teravan right now, and he never saw anyone use it except for Flame. Then he notices Baiyun waiting for someone and wonders what she is doing. He intends to get away quickly, but she reaches out to him. She unexpectedly approaches him with a question. Beck can't believe Baiyun wants to ask him something. When he asks her what it is, she questions why he did not explain the solution earlier. He thinks it's not that he didn't, but that he couldn't. He believes she is misunderstanding his words and says he just doesn't have anything to say. She thinks about it and then says she understands, and says to him that he didn't want to announce his answer in a situation like that as there was no benefit to him. Beck claims that isn't it either, but she promises to pay him for the service. When he inquires about her intentions, she assures him that he will be appropriately compensated. For that, he must convey his thoughts about the problems and help to her solve them. He's much more bewildered now. In the library, we see them sitting at a table with exam papers in front of them. He questioned why she needed to know these 3 questions. After she explains she has her reason, he confirms that she only made 3 mistakes and asks if she is embarrassed to seek help from someone who got all the other questions wrong. She responds no, adding that the only embarrassing thing is her inability to solve the problems. He thinks she is an ideal student and asks why she chose him particularly. He adds that she is a princess, thus she must have many friends she might have asked for. She says only 3 of the 1,141 freshmen correctly answered the 3 questions. He is surprised at her answer and questions what she said. She explains that they were designed to be unsolvable. But only he, Yusong, and Flame got it properly. So now she's in a difficult situation. He sprints out of his chair, questioning if they were designed to be unsolvable. She wonders whether he couldn't tell by really solving them. He sits back down, thinking it's ridiculous, and finally understands why he is in S-class and why Flame acted cautiously around him. He then reveals that he doesn't know all about the game story mode because he has just focused on PvP matches. So he had no idea there were trick questions like these. But that Flame was different. She has read the novel, so even if she doesn't know the game story, she knows the settings of the story, such as the 3 questions. As he was not there in the original written content, she finds it strange that his existence appears as dangerous. Bai Yun inquires about his concern, but he assures her that there is nothing to worry about, and asks if she remembers her commitment to listen to his one request as a thank you for assisting her solve the question. He tells her his request is simple. He wants to transform his staff into a magical sword, and blacksmiths in her kingdom should be able to do it. She questions why he wants something that only low-level mercenaries use. He says it fits his style. He avoids explaining his inability to utilize magic and instead asks if she can do that. She agrees as it appears to be a simple task. He says good and begins to explain how to answer the first question. He suggests a change of views and identifies her shortcomings as the fact she is a bookworm who is stuck in a rut. He believes she just understands this in her 2nd year, after losing to Flame. So he cannot provide immediate insights, he can guide her in the right direction. When asked if she knows what a nonsensical quiz is, she thinks about it and claims to have heard of it. He offers an example and asks her what's between a knee and a knee. She states the back of the knee, but he disagrees. The answer is, and she wants to know how. He repeats the question to her, and she gets it and begins to glare at him angrily. He tells her to calm down and focus on the question. It has formulas and techniques she doesn't know, which means it has to be solved by using creativity, and questions her if it is possible to memorize creativity. She looks dull and says, "No." He smiles, explaining that knowing spells and tactics is important. But as a mage, it's more important to expand their perspective outside their own thoughts, as even minor modifications might lead to magical growth. However, she tends to take things too literally and overlooks the importance of not just memorizing information. He believes she is excellent in logical thinking and judgment but lacks imagination, which is essential for a mage. Her hand begins to shake, and her aura becomes more tense. Okay guys, this is the end of the video. If you want more parts of this manhwa, please comment and let me know. Make sure to like and subscribe before you leave, and thank you for watching Manga Stories.